A very good morning. Thank you so much for choosing Look Up Television right here in the headquarters. This is Look Up TV across our social media platforms. Look Up Television on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and as well as X. Join us in the conversations, and of course we have quite a number of output out there. So cheza kama wewe ingia pale kwenye mitandao, subscribe and follow us. Of course, remember you can comment and ask any question in the manner of which you can as our humble viewer. This morning, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be getting into a conversation. Yesterday we had just a bridge of the conversation in regards to youth's understanding and commitment right in the Republic, but as well we are still continuing with the same conversation, taste and kind of the Manifesto Yetu, a quiet conversation that needs to take the center stage right here in the country. Youths are the pillar, becoming a conversation day in, day out in the understanding of what is really happening in the Republic. Earlier this year, of course, we had initiated a drive for change, and the drive for change was as a result of protest across the country that sparked outrage within and beyond the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning, even as we'll be speaking about Manifesto Yetu, what is indeed our agenda, what is indeed our manifesto as young people right here in the country? The government will say that the youths, just want to protest, but they do not have a particular agenda, a particular design, a particular structure. But what indeed is our structure, even as we try to rectify the government and, create things that should run right here in the Republic. There are many things that are happening across the Republic. And of course, just to give you a glimpse on some of the things that we find as outrageous, DCI releases details of Jirongo's final minutes before deadly highway crash. The death happened actually a couple of days ago, and the driver has been released on cash bail pending further investigations into the offense of causing death by dangerous driving. Now, he is required to report to the Naivasha traffic base on December 22nd, a couple of weeks to go this year, for further police action, Marete said. And now the DCI are still continuing the investigation and comprehensive investigations into the circumstances surrounding the death of former cabinet minister and ex-Lugari MP Saras Jirongo, who succumbed to injuries sustained in a fatal traffic accident along the Nakuru-Nairobi highway. In a statement that was issued on Monday, the DCI confirmed that the crash occurred in the early hours of December 13th, 2025 at Karai area, Naivasha, involving Jirongo's vehicle and a public service vehicle PSV bus operated by Climax Company Limited. Now, the taste and kind of this investigation is that the DCI's investigation on the CCTV is telling a different story on what we already know. Some of the eyewitnesses that were there and what the DCI receives from the CCTV kind of tells a different story. But of course, our DCI will give us the full report once it's done and clear, so that we can be able to receive a clear picture on the outlook of Jirongo's death. That is what is taking shape across the country, and everyone is speaking about this following the incident. The DCI deployed a multi-agency team comprising homicide, detective and forensic experts from the National Forensic Laboratory. And of course, let me just give you an outlook of what the statement signed by J.K. Marete on behalf of the DCI boss reads. In line with the mandate, the DCI deployed a combined team of homicide detective and forensic experts from the National Forensic Laboratory, who visited the scene, conducted preliminary examinations and secured key exhibits. We'll get to understand that in the clear manner, and of course at the end of the tunnel we'll get a clear picture of what indeed is happening and what indeed happened. Will we get the true story? Because it has been controversial for quite some time. Even as the citizens are trying to get answers towards this, we'll be able to get also an understanding and a clear understanding. And of course we'll not forget to take you up to speed on the outlook of Jirongo's death. But away from that, there's something about the bomb. I do not know clear picture about the bomb. But history bomb nafikiri mmeisikia will also get a clear picture on the same. Police deployed as crowd attempts to siphon fuel after train derails in Uasin Gishu. There was an accident that happened in Soi. A contingent of police officers was deployed on Tuesday, December 16th, to stop residents from siphoning fuel from a derailed train in the Soi area of Uasin Gishu County. It happened a couple of hours ago. It all began when a freight train derailed shortly before noon, triggering panic among residents who swiftly informed area police officers about the incident. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not the first time that tuseme tu gari ya mafuta inaanguka alafu raia inang'ang'ana inajaribu kwenda kuchota mafuta. There's an accident that happened a few years ago and it was so tragic. I do not know if Kenyans do not remember these stories. Now it's always not a joke. It's not always business as usual. So if any accident happens like this, we are always told to stay away from them as much as possible. Na itakuwa fiti sana just to keep ourselves safe. According to the preliminary reports, the locomotive derailed after attempting to move through a blocked section of the rail, leading to the separation of the front section and the rest of the wagons. But I'm really happy that hii train haikuangukia watu. But the saddest part is that ukiangalia hizo picture, there are many Kenyans that were going to the scene with mitungi, trying to fetch something, but so sad. And we're just happy that our dear Lord was there, and of course just to secure that place in the best way possible. Image widely shared on the internet showed train wagons slightly titled and tightly squeezed against each other, with fuel spotted leaking onto the ground. Let the police take action, and of course the investigations as well are taking the center stage. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier this morning, we'll be able to shift a conversation on the Manifesto Yetu. Earlier on, actually yesterday, we were having the same conversation on the youth and politics, youth's voice and the youth's verdict in the year 2025, and of course what is their expectation and what is next for the 2026. And I'm really happy that we're having this conversation in regards to Manifesto Yetu, and of course in the line of the youth as well. We'll be able to have the same taste and kind of the conversation in our next, the very few minutes that we'll be having on this live broadcast. Joining the conversation, of course, across all social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and as well as www.lookuptv.co.ke. Number is working 0745-762-640. This morning we'll be joined in by Ruth Bolo, TWG member, Manifesto Yetu, and as well Gashui Karaoke, a political lead, Manifesto Yetu, and as well they'll be sharing with us what indeed can the youth ideas become national policy. The question that is asked this morning, of course, joining the conversation as we shape the intent mission of the youths and what is particularly involved in some of the agendas, in some of the commitments, in some of the engagements that the youths want to drive a change. What kind of change indeed will they drive? How does, their ideas bring solution right to the heart of the Republic? Indeed, can youth's ideas become national policy? So Kenya's youth make up of 60% of the population, yet they remain underrepresented in political leadership, policy design, and economic decision making. Manifesto Yetu positions itself as an attempt to flip this script by turning youth priorities into a national blueprint for inclusion, accountability, and shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, at a time when youth unemployment remains above 35%, public debt continues to rise. Remains above 35%, public debt continues to rise. Key area to take note, and trust in political institutions is strained. The question is no longer whether young people have ideas, but whether those ideas can translate into real national policy. Now today, we examine whether Manifesto Yetu is a symbolic moment or a serious pathway to reshaping Kenya's political culture. All right? Understood? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the engagement this morning. And of course, we are having our guest. It is so humble to see you. You look lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
And I'm loving the fact that we are engaging for the first time.
Yeah.
Tumekuwa tu tukikuona kwa screens, with Simba, but this is the first time we're engaging.
Yes, we are, and I'm quite excited.
Amazing. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's a bit chilly today, but I'm feeling good.
All right, sawa. So we'll get to you, of course, in the next few minutes, and then you'll give us the bolder introduction of yourself, and of course, what is the outlook of Manifesto Yetu as well. Now, earlier on, I mentioned, of course, Kenya's youth make up to a larger percentage, and we've been speaking about youths for a very long time. Marao, unemployment, Marao, there is no job opportunities for these youths, and of course, early this year, we also had protest that engages the youths in particular ways. As we speak this moment, of course, I'd really be happy to understand the alignment of Manifesto Yetu. And we always say that youths have many ideas. But the question that we're asking this morning, can these ideas become national policy? Can they drive a change? Can they impact in one way or the other? Of course, Manifesto Yetu describes itself as a blueprint for inclusive prosperity. Now, in a country where youth unemployment remains persistently high despite economic growth, what specific policy shifts will move inclusion from rhetoric to reality? Wow, quite some questions indeed. So we are having a number of youths that wants to engage, wants to drive change, wants to impact the society, wants to change the government. But do you think these ideas can drive a particular change? And do you think these ideas can become national policy? Now, the document speaks to accountability as a core pillar, with Kenya consistently ranking poorly in corruption perception indexes. How can a youth-driven manifesto realistically challenge entrenched political and institutional interest? You see these questions, and they're very bold. And I believe you'll be able to answer them in the best way you can.
And I look forward to it.
All right. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Ruth Bolo. I am the head of strategy and planning at Manifesto Yetu Consortium. Manifesto Yetu Consortium basically started over a cup of coffee one early morning, discussing the protests that had just happened. We had one of the young women in the political space had been arrested and was being charged for terrorism simply for participating in the protests. And so that story, that Gumzo Mtaani, turned into, this is something that everyone is talking about, but they're not doing anything about it. So what can we do? What next? Turned into a few people gathering young people from 25 youth-led organizations that has since grown to over 52 youth-led organizations that then grew to voices across the country that then was documented in the manifesto.
Amazing.
Yes.
How impactful were the protests towards achieving Manifesto Yetu?
I think the protests were very impactful. If you remember, when we kept the rallying call was, we are leaderless, we are tribeless.
Indeed.
We are, partyless, and of course we are jobless and moneyless. But a lot of people then would say that you are also radarless, you are idealess. They would use such words to sort of curtail the voices and completely turn off what those ideas were. So that gave us a platform to just say that we know what we want as young people, and we know how we want it done and how we want it achieved. But we don't have a single place where we can enforce that and share it out. So that we don't get to the streets again, we don't see a number of us being killed again, why don't we present what we want? And why don't we use that to then track its implementation even post-2027?
All right.
Yeah.
Before further conversations, you will realize also the government tries as much as possible to ask the opposition that tafadhali, let's not just speak, let's come with an agenda.
Yes.
And let's come with manifesto. Yeah, this is what the government is not doing, but this is what we can do. And you mentioned earlier that at some point in time the youths are regarded as rudderless.
Yes.
Do you think at this point in time we're still rudderless?
Absolutely not. We are not rudderless. Let me tell you, when we went to some of those counties, I remember because in Northeastern we went to Mandera. And when we went to Mandera, we went, I think the day before the town hall engagement, we went to just, do site visit. And the conversation started there. So they would come, the young people at Mandera TTC would come and they would ask us, so kesho muna expect ni nani na nani wanakuja? What are some of the conversations you guys are having? Watu wa pale walisema, sisi yu hatutaki. That doesn't work for us. This is what we would prefer. This is how we would prefer to be engaged in politics. When we went to Homa Bay, the conversation was very different and their needs are very different from what those in Mandera wanted. When we went to Embu, it was very different. So we are right now, anyone who says that the youth are rudderless is in for a rude shock come 2027. They are in for a rude shock because we know exactly what we want. And if you look at the document, you will see the how. A lot of what happens during campaigns is, I will do this, I will do that, but what is always missing is the how. How will you do it? How will you achieve it? How will you source for that money to do it? We've answered all those questions in the requests that we are giving. So I don't think this time around we can be considered as rudderless. And anyone else who refers to young people right now as rudderless is using that to just distract the agenda and ensure that people don't focus on what the young people are saying.
Amazing. Bolo, what we're speaking about story in our youth's unemployment, and I don't believe you're jobless, right?
Why don't you believe I'm jobless? How is it written on my forehead?
You know, with the outlook of, you know, Bolo's empire, I'm about jobless. That is, isn't it? But now, you mentioned something about, you know, inclusive prosperity, and everyone wants this. Yes. Everyone wants to be in these conversations. Yeah, manze. Despite the fact life is very hard, but there is still room for prosperity. And of course, now the question this morning, in a country where youth unemployment remains persistently high, despite the economic growth, what specific policy shifts will move inclusion from rhetoric to reality?
I think we have focused on 4 key things. The first one is we've talked about blue economy, green economy, and the digital economy.
Indeed.
And we focused on those 3 as the key pillars to opening up the employment sector for young people. We've talked about the National Employment Authority, first of all, being managed by a youth. Then now being, you know, the body that sort of like an employment agency, because that's what it's meant to be.
Indeed.
But what we are envisioning is a system where once you graduate from university, then you register under NEA. And once you register under NEA, any company that hires a certain percentage of their staff from NEA gets certain tax incentives. That way we are able to see, you know, that rollout, it will help to actually push a number of the fresh graduates, because the other day, one of my mentees was graduating and I told him, wow, congratulations, how are you feeling now? I'm sure you're excited. And he told me, no, I'm not stepping into a world where I'm not going to get any job. 8 to 5, I'm not doing anything apart from applications, and I'm not even sure if I'll get anything. So this at least guarantees them some sort of, you know, employment, some sort of experience. Because another issue is that you leave university, you're out for 7 years looking for a job. When you finally get a job, they're asking you, what is your experience? Where was I supposed to get that experience from? And so that helps to cure some of those things. I think the other issue was we wanted to move from the GDP as it is now, and we are thinking of now moving to a more dignity-centric economy. And in the document, we actually talk about prioritizing a decent living for every citizen and decent jobs as well for every citizen, as opposed to just working and ensuring that our GDP meets a certain threshold. Fine, we want it to meet a certain threshold, but can it come also hand in hand with decent living for every citizen and not just, you know, the economic expansion? We also talk about financial inclusion, and we are looking at loans and grants that can be given to youth that have been in business for a certain period of time. Of course, we are looking at youth-led businesses that have remitted tax. We are looking at youth-led businesses that have also employed other young people. Such businesses, we shouldn't see them going down. We've seen in the last 5 to 6 years, apart from the big companies that have closed in Kenya, there are a lot of young people who are employing their fellow young people that have had to close their businesses, that are resulting to selling online, which then means that a lot of their staff then have to get fired. So how can we ensure that these businesses keep going? We have a lot of licenses, and I was just telling someone right now in Nairobi County, if you're a tailor, the costs are so absurd. You would rather sell online. But online, again, they're coming after those who are making an income from the online platforms, which is a whole conversation in itself. So yeah, those are some of the things we've looked at. We've also looked at the National Youth Council. And we are saying it needs to move from being a National Youth Council to a National Youth Commission that can then also negotiate and lobby for certain jobs. When industries are settling in Kenya, one of NYC needs to be on the table, and NYC needs to put demands on behalf of the young people. A story is told of one of the great hotels that decided to settle in Tanzania and not Kenya because of apparently the high bribes they were being asked for in Kenya. But we are saying when hotels like that, seasoned hotels, want to come to Kenya, can they be told that we would like you to give an internship to X amount of people every year in your hotel? We would like you to employ, out of the locals you're employing, 30% need to be young people. Those are some of the conversations that NYC needs to be having on behalf of the young people.
Day in, day out. Yes. The document on Youth Manifesto as well, you know, we're speaking so much on the manifesto because it's a national agenda as well. The Youth Manifesto was developed through participatory approaches that included conducting desktop review and many things that you'd mentioned earlier. You went to different places, of course, to just get a glimpse of what the youths need and what the youths also see about particular things. And of course, you realize that you identify gaps, lessons, and emerging issues. In these places that you visited, kila kijana akona idea. At this point in time, what are some of the gaps that you guys identified, and what are some of the lessons that you as Bolo and as Youth Manifesto embraced out of this?
I think the first, maybe to start with the lessons.
Okay.
We have had youth manifestos in the past. But what happens is we do the youth manifesto and then we give it to the candidates, albeit late into the political calendar, or the campaign calendar, where they've already drafted their manifestos. So we are telling them, this is your manifesto, but this is ours also. So they don't add it. It's not implemented or included in their manifestos. It's just a document that's on the side. So that's one of the things that we realized, and that's why we started the conversation early as well, where we said, as most political parties start to draft their manifestos next year, then we can as well have them do this document, because the document is now ready. So they can now include it in their main party manifestos. The other thing we noticed is political parties and youth leagues specifically were not very aligned with the youth manifestos that were being developed across. As we went to the different places, the youth leagues, apart from maybe counties where a political party has sort of monopoly, quote unquote, over that area, you'd find that the youth league is very, you know, not disillusioned, but the youth league's activities of political parties are very far off from the common youth. And if you talk to them about certain things that youth leagues of political parties are doing, they would ask you, umesema ni chama gani? Ati walikuwa wapi? Ai mimi hiyo sijasikia. You tell them, haven't you seen them online? These people have a following of about 2 million. Hai mimi hata sijawahi waona, I didn't know about it. So the youth leagues, we realize, then have a lot of work to do in terms of getting to those young people that were you know, protesting, those young people that were raising their voices online. There's still so much work that youth leagues of political parties need to do to bridge that gap. Because ideally the cycle is the youth leagues can then get those voices, speak, and they become the bridge between the top leadership of the party and the common youth. Because the top leadership of the party is then the one that talks to their legislators and their executives about implementation of the manifesto. So if there is a big gap and there is a disconnect between the youth leagues and the young people who were on the streets, then we're not going to see anything changing.
Indeed.
The other thing we realized and we learned is that, and the gap that we saw, is a lot of times when we go to political parties that didn't get to be president, and we ask them about the implementation of their manifesto, they will tell you, si munaona hata sisi sio rais, hamukutuchagua sisi. But the question then becomes, mko na wabunge. You have members of county assemblies. You have senators. You have governors who are also part of executive. So if you're telling us that you didn't get the presidential seat, yet we know that a lot of things that were in your manifesto required policy changes, then you're taking Kenyans for a fool. Because it's not the executive that does policy changes. Leave alone the National Assembly right now that is being accused of being captured by the state. Ideally, the legislators are the ones who change these policies. And so the conversation starts from there. The conversation should not only focus with, the executive or the presidential. We have the judiciary, and some of these reforms need the judiciary. But we focus so much on national government, and we focus so much on the presidential seat that we leave out small wins that we could gain from legislatures. That's another thing that we learned. I think another gap that there were conversations around TVET, conversations around the quick change and the quick shift in cabinet. And young people are saying you start a project with a CCM or with a cabinet secretary at the national level, and then 2 months before you implement it, there's a shift. The president wakes up and announces the shift, or the governor does a press release and announces a shift. So whoever comes in next does not prioritize your project, or does not prioritize, and that an example, of course, that was given a lot again is NYC. National Youth Council is an issue that came up in all meetings. Not only did we go to counties, we did stakeholder engagements with young people from different sectors. And I can assure you, Moses, in every meeting we were in, the National Youth Council came up as a thorn. The National Youth Council was cited as a problem. And so that is another gap that young people kept on talking about. Yes, so that and the shift, of course, with the different cabinet secretaries and the different CCMs that were there was also a big problem that a lot of young people cited. The TVETs and the mode in which the TVET learning is happening, the fact that a lot of areas still don't have the TVETs, the fact that a lot of counties are not in regional economic blocks. Look at Baringo County was just recently incorporated into NOREB. So those are some of the gaps that the young people were citing.
All right. Yeah. So what is the true reality in all this? You mentioned quite lessons and gaps that you identified. So what is the reality in this? Are we facing ile tunasema mbele ni kunoma?
I think sahi ndio kunoma. We are telling the current government, we are telling the current opposition that wants to form government, and any other person who wants to get into office, even at the lowest level, at the ward level, we are telling them that have a look at this document. When you have a look at this document, then mbele haitakuwa kunoma.
Indeed.
Mbele itakuwa sawa. I don't know, I know there's one of the politicians whose slogan is mbele iko sawa.
Mbele iko sawa.
So look at that manifesto, read it. It's very detailed, Moses. We talk about moving the creatives. We had a stakeholder engagement with the creatives, and the creatives talk about their royalties moving from the current system into e-citizen. And they explain in detail how that money will be received, how that money will reflect, how you are able to see what you have made so far and what you are expecting, what you need to do. So they have those solutions. So if systems like that can be followed, if systems like that can be put in place, then you then realize that mbele kutakuwa kusawa. But without that, so long as we have governments that do not care about the manifestos they give, and because one of the things that we did in every engagement, the first opening question would be, what is one manifesto promise that you have had before that you remember that was absurd to you?
Indeed.
Or that was promised and was not implemented. And you will hear it all. People talk about the laptops. People talk about Hustler Fund. People talk about Baba Care. People talk about the 6,000. People talk about SHA. So they read these things and they remember them. And so if there's goodwill to implement the manifestos, then the reality will be good. But right now is when things are tough. I know the government always says that things will get tougher before they get better. But there's a way to ensure that the common citizen doesn't feel that toughness, even as you are streamlining things.
Indeed. I was here thinking about every time we mention about the youths, before 2022, we weren't speaking so much about youth engagement into politics, and the youths weren't so much involved in politics, but the government will initiate like to support youths and try as much as possible to implement stories of youths every time in their conversations. But rapidly, ikakuwa ni story kila siku. 2022 till now 2025, we're still embracing now a youth movement coming out stronger, and the motive indeed wasn't so much clear because the intention haikuwa absorbed. But now you're mentioning something about the reality that now storms every youth's mind day in day out. Akiamka hali itakuwa namna gani, there are people that are wanamtegemea, and so on and so forth. There is a need for accountability as a core pillar, where the document of course insists in that as well, with Kenya consistently ranking poorly on corruption perception indexes. So how can a youth-driven manifesto, the intention, the motive, the desire, realistically challenge entrenched political and institutional interest? How can the motive of the youth be absorbed into these such engagements?
So one, just before I go to that, there's still on the realities. I remember one of the counties we went to, there's a young man who walked in with 2 children, and he looked tired and very exhausted. And I remember when he took that mic, it was a good 7 minutes. I will never forget. It was a good 7 minutes of explaining what he's going through. And 7 minutes is not mean feat when someone is talking. And he talked about his journey into education and finishing that, and now looking for a job, not getting a job despite being an A student in KCSE and being celebrated, looking for a job, going ahead to now fend for his family, getting a child when he's still, considerably a child, and now wanting his kids to go to school, and all of a sudden there's no free primary education, and the taxes that are involved, and he just elaborated. And so I think that when we talk about the realities, that is an image that just comes to my mind, because that was one of the most painful things I have seen one of my peers go through. Now, when we talk about oversight and accountability, the first thing that was standard across is the theft that is there, or the theft that came with devolution.
Wow.
And so that then put us in a place between a rock and a hard place, because one side was saying, can you abolish devolution, because it's just bringing in corruption. It has just brought corruption closer. It has not done anything else. The other side is saying, no, devolution is good. If you look at counties like Makueni, who once elected good governors and understood what devolution was meant to be, they've done it well, but there is a lot of theft happening there. So what do we need to do? Let's not abolish it. Let's just rectify a few things here and there. So when we talk about the oversight in devolution, that's a big area that we felt needs to be strengthened, and there is need for thorough oversight. We feel like Senate is doing its bit, but Senate goes ahead to query, and they write their recommendations. But after Senate writes its recommendations, and then what? Very often we don't see the county government coming back to say, out of 13, you told us to make corrections in 7 areas. These are the 7 areas we have done. We don't see them saying that in 2 months' time, if you've not done these 7, then we will recommend to your MCAs to impeach you. The members of county assemblies watch these proceedings. They see money being stolen. I mean, wheelbarrows that are being bought at outrageous prices, pens that are being bought at outrageous prices. And members of county assemblies see these things, but they don't act on what Senate has recommended. So we have advocated for a different system when it comes to the oversight and holding governors accountable at that level. We've also talked about citizen-led accountability, because we are saying citizens' duty should not start and stop at the ballot. You still need to hold people accountable. You still need to attend public participation. Not once, not twice, not thrice, every single time. So that then you're able to say, last time these were the recommendations, we didn't see that happening. As you're coming with this, can you give us feedback on some of the issues we said last time? But if you miss those public participation meetings, you can't do such follow-up. You should be able to ask, even on social media, ask and say, you launched this project on your social media 4 months ago. It is now, 4 months later, we are not seeing anything. It's 3 years later, we are still having these same challenges. Citizen-led accountability is something that we really, really stress. And of course, we also talk about the independence of the independent institutions. And we're talking about, EACC. We are looking at the independence of EACC. We are looking at the independence of the DPP and such like bodies, where we are saying we need to relook at what their functions are, and we need to relook at their budget, because the National Assembly that then approves budget is the same one that is supposed to be oversighting some of these bodies and vice versa. You're asking me to oversight the person that then determines how much or whether I will be paid. I think there is a challenge there. So we also look at restructuring of some of these independent institutions.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bolo, for joining us this morning, and of course the lovely insights in the first segment. When we come back, we'll be able to understand, do you think the youths have ideas? Do you think these ideas can work for a better policy, for better tomorrow, for the engagements, and as we near the year 2026? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking a very short break. Do you think the youths have ideas, and can these ideas become national policy? That is our question this morning. Join us across all social media platforms, and we'll read them aloud right here on our live broadcast on The Morning Drift, The Big Conversation. Gashui is coming.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu, wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hawa sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
All right. Youth participation in politics has often, of course, been limited to mobilization rather than decision making. Now, what structural changes do Do political parties and government institutions need to adapt to move youth from the margins to the center of power? Ladies and gentlemen, the conversation this morning is Manifesto Yetu. Can the ideas of the youth become national policy? We've been speaking about youth for a very long time. Day in, day out, we're still pushing for these engagements because they take a bigger percentage right here in the Republic. The government says this and says that in the alignment of the goodwill for the people, and that now the conversation on youths come as a pillar, as the center stage of every discussion. Today we're speaking about youths do not have jobs. There is unemployment crisis in the Republic. Youths have studied, but there is no opportunities for them. How can we initiate policies that will drive us for the betterment of the successful stories for these particular youths? Now, earlier on, we answered questions on the true reality that faces the youths. Bolo here mentions about the gaps and the lessons that she has identified to, with regards to Manifesto Yetu, and of course, there's a need. There's a need to push for many things to happen for a better tomorrow. We have a couple of days to near the 2026, and of course a couple of months to the general elections 2027. A move that is made now will initiate a progress and a greater change towards the future. Nakumbuka ile time ambayo tulikuwa tunasema kwamba tunahitaji sana tuomoke, mbele iko sawa, rada safi, ipo siku. Of course, these statements are now the thing of the past if we do not make a better manifesto, a better agenda towards embracing the good future. Now, the document speaks about accountability, which we mentioned before. And of course, there's a need to correct the government in one way or the other. Corruption cases have been in the rise. Youth participation in politics has often been limited to mobilization rather than decision making. I think we'll answer that. When the government is making decisions, at some point, the youths are not involved. And how would Manifesto Yetu come as an attacking angle towards achieving a better decision making that youths were involved in this, and not only a public participation towards the country, but the intensity of the youth is felt in this decision making that the government is making? What do you think about that?
I think you're right. A lot of times that when young people are involved, it is we have a rally, would like you to come on board. Or we have this project, get me 50 people. So we are saying that this needs to change. But we also recognize that a lot of this starts with the political parties. Because it's these political parties that give tickets to those that then become our leaders, to the leaders that then carry out the mobilizing and all. One of the very radical and interesting suggestions that came out in one of the forums was that the member of county assembly seat should be reserved for people under 35. And whether or not that is included in the document, you have to read it to see. But that is one of the radical proposals that came out. Another suggestion was to have, we have the Parliamentary Service Commission, then we have the County Assembly Service Board. And so the County Assembly Service Board often has the male and female, just clearly outlined in that manner. But we are now saying that we want a youth in the County Assembly Service Board. We need to make sure that it has at least one person that is under 35.
Don't we?
And no, not in all county assemblies. You'll be surprised, similarly, in some county assemblies, like in Meru, they don't have a member of county assembly that represents persons with disabilities. So some of these things, we have them in the documents, but it just ends there. When it comes to implementation, it's not being done. And nobody's investigating this. Nobody's asking questions. So those are the questions that we want asked. And we are saying that some of these things actually need to go ahead and be enforced. We are talking about some of the quotas that are given. And we are saying that when cabinet is being formed, 30% needs to go to youth. The other 70% can be divided amongst women, men, and people with disability. But 30% needs to go to young people. It needs to go to people who are under 35. And this is not just at national government, but we're saying that this also needs to happen in the counties. You find that someone proudly stands, a governor proudly stands and says, si munaona mimi napenda vijana. Si munaona nimeandika huyo ako minister of CCM or agriculture.
Indeed.
Full stop. One person is not enough. We need 30% across board. In some of these areas, you find that the person in charge of youth, sports, and culture, because a number of them have then clamped it that way, the person in charge of the docket that holds the youth is someone who is nearing the retirement age. That is a person that you are putting, of course, their school of thought and their priorities of what they think youth require. It's very different from what the youth actually require and want. The kind of facilities that they will push for is very different from the modern facilities that the young people will want. The kind of innovations they will push for is very different from the kind of innovations that the young people will actually
But can you
push for.
blame those people that are placed into these spaces? Maybe anaona bado hajaomoka vizuri.
I can blame them because part of accountability dictates that when you have been given a position you know you are not fit for, you need to step out. You need to decline it and ask for something else. And we mistake youthfulness for being able to dance to the trendy songs. That's not the case. And I see it with a lot of our governors where they will put on jeans and a t-shirt and they will dance and they will say, "Simunaona hata mimi ni kijana kama nyinyi." And we need to see it beyond that, beyond you relating to our social constructs. We need to actually see it in the policies you push.
Indeed.
We need to see it in the changes you make. We need to see it in you know, some of the infrastructures you give, in some of the opportunities you give. I will tell you in Mandera when we went, and I'll use Mandera because that was an eye-opener for me. We got there and realized that most of them have been employed by the county because there is nowhere else where you're getting a job. There are no industries there. So the county is saying, with this little that we have, we are actually going to use it to employ our people. Those we cannot employ here, we are getting an exchange program for them to go to Turkey. They have programs where the first 8 in the county then get a full scholarship to go and study medicine, for example. And so, you know, those are some of the things that might then interest the young people. But if you've been given a docket you know you will not perform well in, then step out. It's like giving a sports genius the docket, you know, a job in a banking sector. There is bound to be a mismatch there. Yeah.
All right, but you identified so many gaps that you realized that zina affect some of the things that we are up to doing. And then in the beginning of this year, we still talked about these gaps and how will they be filled. But because the gaps are so many, and you know, the government has identified also these gaps. So how do you think youths will become or will get to that space as the center of power? With so many gaps, enyewe tumeona tu you guys are weak, but how will they now initiate and be part of the center of power?
So one, young people are now getting engaged in issue-based politics. There was a time where getting onto a caravan and singing and dancing was enough to get you elected.
Amazing.
There was a time when being seen with the party leader was enough to get you elected. And I mean, that's a whole conversation we need to have with the millennials, because it was, you know, the older millennials especially, because they're the ones who are pushing this, but that has since changed. So the first thing is issue-based politics, because that then helps us to sieve and get those who are actually progressive and those who are not. The second, and then it also of course helps to cut off the violence, which is one of the main things that hinders young people from vying. The second thing is cost of politics. We are talking about the cost of politics in 2 ways. The first cost of politics is the cost that you incur when you want to vie. And that is a heavy cost. And we have seen proposals on how to regulate those funds. But of course, it cannot go through in the National Assembly because you are asking them to regulate and punish themselves. It's not possible. And so we have had discussions on that cost of politics. But we've also had conversations on the cost of being engaged or involved in politics. The cost of attending a rally. The cost of traveling to attend a party function. The cost of showing up to party meetings at 6 a.m. in the morning. Because you have to pick. Moses, as a young person who wants to participate in politics, I have to pick between a formal job and politics, because there are employers that will not allow me to be seen active in politics and work for them. At the same time, sometimes some of these party meetings are held on Wednesdays. Wednesday is a working day. So I have to choose. If I don't go for the meeting, if I miss 3 or 4 meetings, they'll start to say, huyu siku hizi hayuko na chama. This one can't be trusted or counted on. And in the political party, you have to sell your face. They work with those they see often. So I have to choose, am I going to be involved in party matters, or am I going to stay and save my job? So we also discussed that particular cost that you get when you're involved in politics. So how we change this is on how the cost of being involved in politics. We are now saying, how can democracy and governance be a gig for young people?
Amazing.
For example, we are tasking IEBC and we are telling them, you're saying you're short on the people, on the target of voters that you want to register. Why not give young people these jobs and tell them that for every 10 jobs, or for every 10 people that you register, that is 85 shillings. Or for every 1 person, that is 85 shillings. For 10 people, that's 850. So you find that at the end of the day, if I've only registered 10 people, I have my 850 shillings that I'm going home with, as opposed to struggling and not even getting 100 shillings. So we are looking at how can some of these institutions turn governance into, a gig, into a payable gig, so that young people can continue to be involved in politics. We are also saying that the political parties fund, even as they are saying that a percentage of it needs to go to the programs of these political parties, they need to implement. They need to say that, because what happens is they will say a certain number needs to go to activities of youth and activities of women, but they don't enforce it. So political parties know their way around it. So those are some of the conversations that we are having in terms of the participation of young people in politics, because then when they don't participate, they can't be at the center of power.
All right.
Yes, so those are some of the conversations that we are now having. And we are now saying, like, looking at the radical conversation of having the MCA seat being reserved for under 35. That's a seat that will have a lot of young people. But Moses, I have a lot of hope, because if you look at the by-elections, in almost every by-election we had a young person who was vying. And not just a young person who has been a seasoned politician or has been in the political game for 10, 12 years. We're looking at the young people who are just getting into politics, which shows that there is a high interest in participating in politics and in changing things. So there's a lot of hope.
All right. I believe the hope will come to power and will be at the center of power.
Absolutely.
All right. There is a year that is coming here into 2026. And you have to set your alignment for the 2027.
Yes.
And the 2027 will now give us the greater glory of change. And I'm really hoping, the reason as to why I'm happy about this conversation is you're not just speaking to me as, an interview, but also injecting some knowledge on the move, the desire, and this motive will come to life in one or the other, and how best can our many ideas come to life, Nazitaisha. And speaking about ideas now, we're coming to a conversation on the ideas that are being made. So youths have ideas framed as a national blueprint. So what mechanisms exist or should exist to translate youth-led policy proposals into binding government actions? The government has been actively involving youths in one way or the other, injecting that si hakuna kazi. So youths, of course, ndio wengi hawana kazi. And by that time, there are many youths that have studied, there are many youths that have invented things. When you speak about the mechanism, that they existed or are existing right now, how will that, come to leading policy proposals into binding government action that youths can also collaborate with the government? So,
Moses, when I hear someone saying government is involving youth, government is doing something about unemployment, that statement rattles me a little bit. And it rattles me because what does youth involvement look like? Youth involvement is not calling us to cheer when you're opening an affordable housing unit. Youth involvement is not letting go of, stopping the kazi mtaani job, and then 6 months later call me for a 1-week contract. That is not youth involvement. Youth involvement is not calling me to your office every day to give me 100 shillings. That is not youth involvement. So when we talk about youth involvement and government involving the youth, what does that look like? What is the metrics that we are using? What are we using to look at it and say that the government is actually achieving this? So how we plan to push for its implementation and binding? Again, like I said, one, political goodwill. And so what we've done is, because we know these leaders come from the political parties, is we've involved the political parties. We had a meeting with the youth leagues of political parties. We had a meeting with secretary generals of political parties. We had a meeting with the executive directors of political parties. We sent each and every party leader, at least that is registered, the youth manifesto and an invite to the launch that happened on the 11th of December. It will come to you as a surprise that a lot of the emails that are on the Register of Political Parties website bounced back, which means they're not even updating. And that right there is a problem. If the registrar cannot ascertain that the names they have of political parties are accurate, that the contacts they have are accurate, then how do we trust them to implement and to oversight these political parties? But we had a conversation with them just to get their goodwill. The second thing is we have a system called Civic Voices, where we are using, it's like a Facebook, but for this particular conversation, where we are able to converse about the certain reforms that we have asked for, and we are able to track the implementation. So similar to, and we are looking to reach out to organizations like Mzalendo, where we can use the tracking system to just be able to see, out of the 83 promises, or out of our 80 asks, 2 of them are on course. 1 has already been achieved. And we want to be able to talk to them after every quarter and just ask National Assembly, why is it that we don't have anything moving? What is the stumbling block in this particular area? Another thing we have done also is to, again, like I said, we are planning to visit all 92, is it 92 or 98 political parties next year, so that when they start to draft their manifestos come October, then we are asking that they incorporate 3 or 4 of these asks into their manifestos, because when they don't incorporate them, when we come to them in 2027, post 2027, to ask them, you have not implemented this, they will ask us, but did I promise it? Was it in my manifesto? Where will it scare wapi? But if we have it embedded in their manifesto, then it's easy to follow up and to track. So we have a tracking system. We're getting the goodwill of political parties, and we are reaching out to independent institutions to help us with this implementation. Again, like I said, it all comes down to political goodwill. It doesn't matter how much what binding documents we put, what binding agreements we put. It doesn't matter what we write. If there is no political goodwill, they will figure out a way to go around it. We've seen it with the Political Parties Fund. We've seen it with the two-third gender rule. We've seen it with, so many others. And so it all boils down to that political goodwill, but we are willing to do everything possible. We do have a lot of representatives of political parties within the Manifesto Yetu consortium, and so they help us to push. And we are saying that post-2027, if you're part of a political party and your legislators are not moving a motion in line with what we have requested, we are putting you to task.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right. Putting you to task. You need to put the government into task. Yeah, they need to re-strategize these things. And back in the days, you always used to say that when I grow up, I want to be this and that. Then when you finish high school or you finish university, you realize that those are just statements that you made. And up to this moment, when you're speaking about putting things into clarity and the reality of things is kind of different. I think tutaanza kufanya maombi sasa ibada. We hope for the best as well.
Hiyo maombi Moses imefanya kidogo, we were blinded in 2022. So hata tukifanya maombi tutaomba with one eye open.
But God also chooses leaders. So that means we're on the good faith.
God chooses leaders, but sometimes when you knock a door so much and God has closed that door, He says, okay, let me open it so that you can see why I was closing that door. So do you think God closed this door? I think God had shut it and walled the door, but we were insisting on opening it. But all is not lost. Yes.
All right, so Now, Kenya's public debt has crossed critical thresholds, limiting fiscal space for social programs. How does Manifesto Yetu address this economic realism while still promising opportunity and shared prosperity? I mentioned something about inclusive prosperity. We'll get to the bottom line of that when we come back to the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the morning of the big conversation right here on Look Up Television in the headquarters. And of course, Manifesto Yetu is being represented very well with Ruth Bolo. In the meantime, we'll also be embracing another one to give us the insight on Manifesto Yetu. Don't go too far. This is the morning drift.
Morning.
Pindi tu taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, "Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more."
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
For you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many colors.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. They look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in
Nobody's buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Pindi tu taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more.
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
How easy is it for you to forgive someone who has hurt you?
How easy is it?
What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many colors.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. They look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in
Nobody's buying that line again.
No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed the life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up. Kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza alikuwa na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi mali.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji. All right. Welcome back. You're watching the Morning Drift right here on Look Up Television. Nimewambia tena, we are in the headquarters, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, the conversation still is ongoing and the spaces of youth are taking the center stage right here in the Republic. Today we are discussing about Manifesto Yetu, and earlier on we mentioned about these ideas that many youths have. Do you think they can become a national policy? I think that is the last question we'll ask, and you tell us if these ideas can come to a reality in the best way possible. Ladies and gentlemen, joining the conversation across our social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as well as X, and www.lookuptv.co.ke. The WhatsApp number 0745 762 640. I'll read them aloud in this live stream this morning. Let's continue the conversation. Kenya's public debt has crossed critical threshold, limiting fiscal space for social programs. How does Manifesto Yetu addresses economic realism while still promising opportunity and shared prosperity? What do you think about that?
Allow me to interject. I know you are directing it at my sister.
I was supposed to give you a better introduction, but since you're interjecting, all right.
So, as far as odious debt in this country is concerned and public finance management comes into play, remember Parliament has the mandate to oversight public finance in this country. And the problem has been, for the longest time, that young people, insofar as this manifesto is concerned, have not been very concerned about how Parliament goes about public finance management, regulation, and oversight. But then come last year, 2024, when young people decided enough is enough, we have looked at the finance bill. In fact, the crux or the precipice of the protest, the reforms, the movement, the revolution of youth political engagement in this country came about thanks to the finance bill last year. So, due to that, we saw a change, or we have been seeing a change as people within the political space of young people wanting to engage at both the county level, this is devolution, and also at the national level, insofar as policy implementation is concerned, insofar as reforms are concerned. Now, what we did when we went to our regional forums, we had a chance to engage young people in trying to understand what exactly do you understand about PFM, public finance management in this country, and what is it you want to see? So one of the things we are championing for in this document is transparency insofar as oversight and regulatory regulations are concerned with Parliament and also with the executive, the Treasury, The Exchequer must answer to young people in this country. This is exactly what we are doing. These are the opportunities we're providing. These are the levies we're going to come up with. These are the waivers we're coming up with. This is exactly how you will benefit from this. You might have to chip in a bit on this other side, but these are the opportunities, and especially where manufacturing, support for small businesses, and government facilitation of generally a good economic environment is concerned.
All right, well answered. Like a pro in debt?
I hope I will be.
There's also a question on auditing the public debt.
Yes.
All right.
And one of the things that we are proposing is once the public debt has been done, conversations around either renegotiation of those payments or suspension of those payments.
Okay.
Because you realize that how some of the negotiation of those the debts that or the loans that we took as a country, they were not pegged on that particular US dollar rate. So as the dollar rate continues growing, the debt also, it gets to a point we might not even be able to pay that debt. So we are also having conversations around negotiation, renegotiation rather, of the payment of those debts or suspension of their payments altogether.
If you're thinking about, let's ask Karik about this. If you're thinking about these stories of debt every time, now youths are, becoming larger and larger, multitude are growing. We're speaking about debt. Sasa hii future inakaa namna gani where who will pay this debt?
Like my sister has said, one of the questions we are now having to pose again is either negotiations. How are we going to go about this? How do we audit these debts? But ultimately, young people understand that at the end of the day, it is our birthright. Public finance and how it directly affects everything is our birthright. It is our birthright that will be affected. So insofar as the future is concerned, young people from where we have been sitting are saying, for the most part, it's either they find a way of accountability and dealing with this, or we will find a way in future of making sure whoever was in charge and took out these debts will have to pay from their own pockets.
2026 is upcoming.
Yes.
What future are we talking about debts?
I think at the moment what young people should be focusing on through Manifesto Yetu and other platforms or avenues of policy conversations is how, for instance, how are we going about the finance bill right now? At least the Act, the Public Finance Act. What is Treasury doing with the monies they've been getting? You have the KRA that has been collecting revenues across the board. You have your county governments. What is the county government, your county government, doing about funding and debt in this country? Because they're equally involved in revenue, raising revenue allocation, and in also paying up to the Exchequer at the national level. So those are the kind of questions we should be asking as young people as we head into 2026, where again we will have another conversation around March, April, insofar as the Finance Bill 2026-2027 is concerned. That will again propel the conversation around the election period, campaigning and all that. And it is quite critical that we have that conversation now and as we head into March next year, so that hakuna mchezo, tutachezewa mchezo ya town between March and June as we close the financial year.
Amazing. All right. Bolo, the launch brought together figures from both government and the opposition spaces. Does this signal a shift towards issue-based politics, or it's simply bipartisan optics without long-term commitment?
No, we really did not put any effort into optics. We were very focused on issue-based conversations and issue-based politics. And so that is why we ensure that even those who are coming, the conversation was strictly around the manifesto and its implementation.
Okay.
And we made it very clear when we were doing the invitations that keep personality-based politics aside. One term, two term, half term, no term is not a conversation we are having at that platform. At that activity, we're talking about manifesto. So the only thing, the only other politics you can do is tell us against the manifesto you promised the people in your area. How many of them have you implemented? How many have you not implemented, and why? What are some of the challenges that you have encountered? We had members of county assemblies come in and speak, and they spoke about the challenges they faced when they were drafting those manifestos, and when it comes to implementation. We had Senator Kivutha, former Governor Kivutha Kibwana also come in. We had, and a number of others as well who spoke. And we kept it issue-based. And everyone, right from the organizers of Manifesto Yetu, right to the members of the consortium, right to the MCs, knew that should anyone start such kind of conversations, zima mic. Issue-based politics and above. If you attended our engagements, both the sectorial stakeholder engagements where we engaged young people in private sector, trade unions, creative industry, youth in politics, student leaders, YSOs, when we went to the counties, to Kienda ground, it was only issue-based politics, through and through.
All right.
So, yeah.
Kariuki, youth movements in Kenya have historically struggled with sustainability development and beyond moments of mobilization.
Yeah.
Earlier on, we talked about inclusive prosperity and, you know, history of mobilization. Youths, of course, have been the center stage being mobilized. What lessons from past youth-driven initiatives should inform the future of Manifesto Yetu?
Ideology.
Amazing.
One of the things that I would say was the reason youth movements in the past have been, unfortunately, extinguished by powers that be is the lack of ideology. For the most part, youth movements in this country and other parts of this world as well have been very, very emotive. You are angry about something, you have a desire for something, but not quite have a baseline of ideology or philosophy. So that is what we are trying to address as Manifesto Yetu. We strongly believe in creating structures of constitutional order and democratic dialogue in this country. Again, going back to what has been happening in the past 1 or 2 years, remember even before the finance bill fiasco of last year, there was another finance bill protest in 2023. And there has been a build-up of political hardlinism and extremism by young people in this country, which I don't know if you have addressed this yet, but we also need to observe issues around political radicalization as we head into next year. So you have a president who is unwilling to back down on a finance bill. He becomes a hardliner. He ensures that parliamentarians or parliament as an institution is equally reduced into a hardline weapon. Young people on this other side decide, you know what, kama mbaya, mbaya. We're going to clash, okay? So that was an issue of emotions. You saw how that panned out anyway, and all the narratives that came from that fiasco. To that end, it is quite important that we remain with a baseline of philosophy. This is exactly what we want. We aspire to confine ourselves within constitutional order. We aspire to confine ourselves within institutionalism, and we just aspire to ensure that policies, as should be, are in fact implemented in this country. One of our other advantages, I would say, we've had better than other movements before, is we are living in the wonderful era of information revolution. We are always 2-3 steps ahead of the establishment. So even if today powers that be decided they wanted to thwart a youth movement, it becomes very hard because young people are always 3 steps ahead of them, and they will always find a way of countering what maybe the establishment of powers that be are doing through information and critical information at that.
All right. With elections approaching in the next cycle, I'm just giving you the honors. And you had to carry my laser. So with elections approaching in the next cycle, how can youth policy platforms avoid being absorbed into campaign rhetoric and instead remain independent accountability tools?
It is quite important, again, going back to the idea of baselines of philosophy. Vijana tumewangwa sana kwa sababu ya kukosa pesa. It becomes very easy to hijack movements. It becomes very easy to hijack young people. It becomes very easy to hijack philosophies and ideas. So one of the things I would strongly advise young people out there beyond Manifesto Yetu as well, we have, by the way, tried to, as much as possible, create a firewall around the coalition to ensure we do not get interferences, external interferences in how we do our things, is ensure that money is a non-issue. We do not have an excuse, by the way, Moses. Like I said, we are in the era of information and information technology. You don't have to deal with interference. Create your own platforms, go out there, have an audience, and you are always going to be able to push an agenda without needing to get money or fame or validation or this or the other. It is quite possible.
Amazing. All right. Finally, of course, the questions to complete the assignment. Nisifanye injustice towards the document that we shared. The Manifesto Yetu comes in handy in providence, of course, of the motive and the intention that many of us have. Earlier on, Bolo was asking me, should I give you hope? Finally, If Manifesto Yetu succeeds, what will Kenya look like differently in 5 years in terms of governance, economic opportunity, and political participation for young people?
First of all, I would say trust. There will be trust in institutions. You're going to have a high trust society because we are all going to understand that kila mtu anafaa kuplay role yake. At the end of the day, as a young person, you not only have rights, but you also have a responsibility to build and defend this country. You do that by upholding the Constitution. You do that by going out and participating in politics, either as a voter, either as an aspirant, either in public participations, and especially at the devolution level. I always preach the gospel of youth and devolution. It is the lowest hanging fruit for all of us young people. So make sure you are out there, you're participating in terms of conversations around what your MCA is doing at the local level, what is the county government doing for you, what is the health sector looking like at the end of the day, what reforms are coming in, what policies are being implemented by the executive. For some of us, like myself, who is an advocate, what are the constitutional crises or disorders we are seeing that we can then challenge in court on behalf of the Republic? Yeah.
All right, Gashi, did you want to do this? Like, wanted to, become part and parcel of youthful conversations?
Absolutely, yes. I am part of youthful conversations.
So that means, do you have an idea?
An idea in terms of? I'm not quite sure I follow.
An idea in terms of, as we listen to Geshoki karaoke, does she have an idea that will become a national policy?
Yes, I am greatly engaged in politics as a woman, number one, but I also run an organization. My sister is aware of it. It's called Ustawi KE. We do youth-led accountability and governance, basically chapter 7 of the Constitution, people representation, political literacy, political engagement. From where I sit, I want to see as many young people run for office and actually hold office in this country. I personally want to see reforms in the sexual and reproductive health sector. I am not talking about issues of abortions, but I'm talking about menstrual dignity and menstrual health in this country. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. The reason I'm asking this question, Bolo, is we've majored so much on the formality of this conversation. Sasa unajua tunafaa kurudi sasa kwa
back to the basics.
To the basics. For someone that is watching out there, for someone that is listening to this conversation, wewe unatuambia kama nani? Wewe unajua, do you know vitu unapitia kwanza? So the conversation now narrows down to that mwananchi feels the taste here, and yeah, Manifesto Yetu, but this is an idea, and this can work. When you're growing up as a girl, what are some of the things that you identified as a young girl and ukasema, if I become now a youth for that matter, these are the things that I want to embrace?
I think SRHR, like she said, was one of those things, because growing up as a girl, you see your classmates go through very painful periods. You see, and we don't have conversations around what this means. And so whenever they're complaining about not being able to do certain tasks because of the pain they're in, we see the reaction. We don't have enough conversations as young girls about fibroids, endometriosis, and all these things that comes with it. We don't have those conversations. We also don't get we're not given some grace. So as you shift getting into the workspace, and as you continue getting into university and the likes, and you're not being given that grace, those are some of the things that you grow up wanting to change. When there are conversations around free condoms and not free sanitary towels, those are conversations you want to change. I think also just participation in politics, because again, growing up and getting to hear people say she cannot participate because she's not married, or she is not from here, or she's a girl, she's going to be married off anyway. Those are some of the societal perceptions and norms that I have always wanted to change. Seeing young people struggle, like I said earlier, to choose between fending for themselves and participating in politics. Those are conversations that I have always wanted to change. Seeing young women getting into the political parties and being told you cannot be in the youth league, go to the women league. They got the women league, they're told you're still a young person, go back to the youth league. So where does that leave them? Those are conversations that I have wanted to change. You know, hearing people, and I think getting to learn from one education system and hearing the experiences of those from a different education system and seeing where the problem was, I think those are conversations you want to change. Education is another thing that I have been very passionate about, and that stems from the fact that when I was 16, I was given the ability to start a diploma course. But a lot of my peers who were then in Form 2, 3 would then be wondering what. So by the time we are all 18, we all have our high school certificates, but I have an added advantage of a diploma. So when I go to do my bachelor's, then I can skip the first year.
Amazing.
Well, the rest of you are starting from the first year. We are both peers. I get certain, experiences in school when you finish. And just looking at our education system, when you look at the public schools now and the private schools now, and looking at the experience and the exposure they both get, those are the same people that are going to be expected to compete out there. Listening into my parents say, a long time ago, public schools were the in thing. And looking at public schools right now, and I'm like, are we talking about the same public schools? So those are some of the things that I would see growing up as a young girl and telling myself that given a chance, these are the things I would want to change.
All right. So we have 2 minutes each to give us now the final remarks on this. Can youth ideas become a national policy? Then of course there is a youth that has idea out there. Sasa unamwangalia sahi, unamzungumzia and tell him or her your key points on their ideas and how they can thrive in it.
Can youth ideas become national policies? Absolutely. Not only can they, but they will be. And so I think I'll use my 2 minutes to reach out to any young person. Maze tutafute kila mahali. Manifesto Yetu across all platforms. We have a platform, a social platform, just like kama to Facebook, inaitwa Civic Voices. Enda to online after Civic Voices to chat, to ongea. No matter how outrageous, and one of the outrageous ideas we got was someone saying that Joe Piti Piti, famously known as night runners, should then be recognized as sports. No matter what the outrageous idea is. Way to show, way to ambie. Let's start that conversation from there. Let's have that dialogue from there. Tukisonga mbele.
All right. What will be your take, Ashage?
I'm going to say that times have changed. The days of bureaucracy and stuffy men and stuffy women in the office, kukwambia, no, that cannot work, no, that cannot work, are well behind us. Like I said, we are again in the information era. By the way, vijana, that is our greatest advantage, and no one can take that away from us. If you have ideas, if you'd like to talk to Manifesto Yetu, if you'd like to interact with us on what you'd like to see added on, I don't know if we can leave our website link with you guys so that you can share it as well with your viewers. We are more than happy and willing to engage on all social media platforms at a physical level as well, and whatever it is you want, we are going to onboard them. All ideas are possible in this country.
Rashiki, we are winding up the conversation, and we had a long conversation with Bolo.
Yes.
And so when you're coming, when you're on your way here, what was this thing that was ringing in your mind about the conversation this morning?
Well, for me, I have been thinking for some time, we need to have as many engagements in terms of policy, politics, governance with young people as possible. In fact, I was wondering how we can also now start engaging mainstream media like yourself in some of our X spaces. We do a number of X spaces. So how do we now engage mainstream media in our X spaces? How do we engage on TikTok lives as both moderators reporting on youth issues? How do we engage on other platforms as well? How do we reach out to as many young people as possible, and how do we ensure that by the end of next year, now as we start officially the campaign season into 2027, Manifesto Yetu has captured everything, has captured everyone, and is being implemented as is supposed to be across the board.
All right. Look at the youth out there that is watching this morning, and of course will be used also in the future, as you'd mentioned, that the future looks greater, and we can work it out through our ideas. There's a youth that has given up in these ideas, and nasema hii bado tunasema hii ni jaba. So how would you help that?
First of all, tuko na website inaitwa manifestoyetu.org.org. Please ingia kwa website yetu, you will find the document there in PDF, download it. Have a look at it, read it. pinpoint everything
Alright.
and let us know what you think about it. That's number one. Number two, we are more than happy to engage everyone. That's why we have made sure all our platforms are as accessible as possible. While you might not be able to access all of us physically, the coalition members, we have platforms where some of us are able to access all these comments, inboxes, whether it's a complaint, it's a concern, it's a desire you'd like to see, please put it in there. We are going to see it. But first of all, manifestoyetu.org, download the document, have a look at it.
All right. Thank you so much, Washoke Karaoke, political lead Manifesto Yetu, and as well as Ruth Bolo, TWG member Manifesto Yetu. Asanteni sana kwa kutimiza miadi and coming here, of course, to have this conversation deliberately. The future is brighter, just as you mentioned, only if we take a good route for the same. Itakuwa fiti sana. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Moses.
To all the best, to our viewers as well, as a youth, as a member of the Republic, Cheza kama wewe, every day, day in, day out, we actualize these dreams to come to a reality for the greater good into the future. A few days to go, we'll be stepping into the new year 2026, and everyone has the new year manifestos, new year, things that they want to do. All right, we are believing for the best and hoping for the best when it comes to the alignment of the new year. Many months to go. Of course, we'll be initiating 2027 general elections. The steps we make now will amplify the greater glory towards 2027. Now, to wind up this session, the question is no longer whether young people have ideas, but whether those ideas can translate into a real national policy. Today, with Ruth Bolo and Washoke Karaoke, we've examined whether Manifesto Yetu is a symbolic moment or a serious pathway to reshaping Kenya's political culture. If well understood, join us across our social media platforms and we will be pleased. My name is Mos Sketch. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those that made this happen, Asante Sana Simon, Asante Sana Edgar, and above all, Asante Sana Emmanuel Ndeche for making time this morning, and our digital guy, Bilha. Tupatane kesho as we ignite the social and health hour. Good morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Moses.
Thank you, Moses.
If we knew Moses earlier, he would have been our MC.